One kind of game that I kind of grew a pretty big appreciation for is the retro style RPGs. Games like the older Final Fantasy games and Chrono Trigger. Another game I really like is this indie game from a few years ago called The Messenger. So when I found out that Sabotage, the studio behind The Messenger, was making a retro style RPG like Chrono Trigger called Sea of Stars, I was really excited, and now that I've played through Sea of Stars, I can totally say that it absolutely lives up to the hype. But let's talk about it. Hi guys, DPX here, reviewing today Sea of Stars. Be sure to like this video, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell, leave a comment, or I will burn you to a crisp. I mean, where do I even begin? Of course, there is the gameplay, and more so, the combat. The combat on the surface is pretty much like most other RPGs, but when it comes to the turns, it's very interesting. What I mean is, most RPGs work to where you and each of your party members all take your turns, and then once everyone takes their turn, the enemies then take their turns. How Sea of Stars works, however, is there is a timer on the enemy, meaning your party can keep taking turns until the enemy's counter runs out, and then they go. I hope that made sense, but I think it adds a great dynamic to the combat and makes you play a little different, sort of strategizing how you are going to fight these enemies. Plus, you have your party members. You know, the game follows two characters, Zale and Valir. When the game starts, it asks you to pick between the two, but ultimately it doesn't really matter, as the game is still the same regardless of what character you pick, minus like maybe a few dialogue changes. But each character has some cool abilities. Zale mostly has fire attacks, Valir uses attacks from the moon, and you got other characters like Garl, who cooks for everyone, and this ninja who can go through a portal and use her poisonous dagger to attack people. It's pretty cool. There are even more party members, but they aren't until later in the game, so I won't spoil that. But all of them add a nice dynamic to the game. And yes, by the way, this is something I forgot to write down, but yes, by the way, I did say later on in the game, because you'll be towards the end of the game, and the game is still finding ways to freshen things up. Also, although I touched on the combat, that is far from the only thing that the gameplay has to offer, as it also has you just running around and exploring what is pretty damn close, if not already, an open world. Exploring from point A to point B helps you feel how big this game is, and there is also platforming that I think is really damn cool. There are also the boss fights. Now at first, for, the first boss fight, I kept dying a lot, and I wasn't sure why. I didn't feel like the game was difficult, so I wasn't sure why I was having a bit of a tough time with the first boss fight, but as I later found out, it's because the boss had, arms attacking me, of course. But what you are supposed to do is attack the arms so they don't attack you, so then you beat the giant head, and I just think that is pretty cool, and to my memory, that's not something that the game outright tells you, but figuring out stuff like that feels rewarding. There's also the story, as it is very in-depth. Your two main characters, who I've already mentioned, Zale and Valir, are known as the Solstice Warriors, and they live in a world where magic is very rare. That's all I'll get into, but the story can be pretty engaging and honestly gets a lot done and conveys a lot without any audio. As for other positives, I don't think I can make a Sea of Stars review without mentioning this art style. Holy shit, does this game look absolutely beautiful. It's definitely taking after the SNES RPGs aesthetically, and there are some moments where I just had to pause and simply just admire how beautiful it looks. The music is also really solid, and if this doesn't even get nominated for Best Soundtrack at the Game Awards, something is fishy over there. I mean, they have Yasunori Mitsuda as the main composer of the game, who is best known for his music on the Xenoblade games and, of course, Chrono Trigger. And you can clearly tell that they have some reviewed music talent. there are also some Easter eggs, many Easter eggs. I don't want to spoil any of them for y'all, but there are some really nice Easter eggs to other games, and even beyond that. There's a lot to love in Sea of Stars. Onto the mix section. These are issues that I feel are worth mentioning, but I don't think they should ruin the game. For one, there are some long dialogue sections, and I know I said that the story is really solid, but there are some times where the characters kind of got the point across, and I understood what just happened, but some sections kind of just kept going. It didn't happen too much, but it was annoying when noticeable. And what made this issue a little bit worse was the fact that there is no auto advance. I don't know, I feel like that could have sped things up. I know that's like something that turns a lot of people off of RPGs, so if you don't like that, that might bother you a lot more. But it is worth mentioning. As for the bad, not much that particularly ruined the game for me, but some things worth mentioning. For one, there are some unskippable cutscenes, and I know you're wondering why I'm even mentioning this, because I already kind of did, but I'm not talking about story cutscenes. Let me give you an example. At a point in the game, you go to this building, and you go around different parts in the building with an elevator. And every single time you use the elevator, the same cutscene plays. You know, the same cutscene of your whole party getting into the elevator and seeing the elevator move and where it goes, that cutscene plays every single time, and I do mean every single time, and you can't skip it. I'm sure it's probably to hide the fact that the game has to load to the next area, but I just found it annoying. The game is also a little bit too easy. And on the one hand, that made the game more enjoyable, and because of that, I was able to just sink in just how beautiful Sea of Stars is. But after the first boss fight, where I figured out what to do, every single other boss fight afterwards, I never once felt like I was gonna lose. Some of them took a while, but I never really felt challenged. And lastly, this isn't the biggest issue, but there were a few times in the game where I felt like the game was just padding its runtime just a little bit, particularly during the later parts of the game. Didn't happen too often, but when it felt like that, it sure felt like that, if you know what I mean. Even though the issues I just listed definitely don't sound good, don't let that deter you, as I absolutely adored Sea of Stars while I was playing it. From start to finish, the characters and party members, the story, the combat, this world, all are great on their own. But then you throw in the award-contending music and the jaw-droppingly gorgeous visuals, and you have an indie game and RPG that nobody should pass up. In the end, I'm going to give Sea of Stars a 9 out of 10. I don't know if this is my game of the year. It's most definitely not, because of the packed year we have. But is it my favorite indie game? Most certainly. Well, that's my review for Sea of Stars. Sorry took me a lot longer to make. Again, Sea of Stars is quite a long game, at least longer than I was expecting. Also, real life happened on a few occasions, and Baldur's Gate 3 happened to come out as well on PS5, and there's no way I'm finishing that before Starfield, but I'll have some sort of video about it soon. But anyways, what do you guys think of Sea of Stars? You guys like it, not like it? Have you guys played it, not played it? And if you haven't played it, you guys want to play it, not want to play it? Anything about the game, let me know down below. Anyways, be sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, or I will burn you to a crisp.